And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gocher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher, and welcome back to him, Pete Williams.
How are you, buddy?
Good. Great to have you back with us.
It's good to be back. It's been a little bit chaotic with the new baby and stuff like that. A lot of fun, but a little chaotic, but all good.
Yeah. And you have, however, been holding up your end of the deal, even though you weren't on the show, because you have been out and about doing your usual your usual opportunity seeking and your content creation activities, and you managed to get an interview with another author, right?
Yeah, another Wiley author who published my original book, which is kind of cool as well. There's a bit of a slight sort of alumni feel to it as well, which is always good.
Yeah, cool. And I'm really interested in this book because it sounds like it's right up my street. Because this, you spoke very recently with Heather Smith, who's the author of Learn Small Business Startup in 7 Days. Now, I love that title because that to me sounds just like what one of those things that I say, which is JFDI. This idea of cover the whole thing in 7 days sounds like it's right up my street.
Yeah, I do like the number 7 letters, of course.
There's that too. There's so look at that.
Yeah, but I guess I said this to Heather in the interview that everyone's about to hear in a moment, that I actually found the book quite a bit different to what I expected. Heather's a bookkeeper and accountant by trade, and we're actually doing a lot of conversations now where we're in the process with our Simply headsets and e-com businesses to actually move everything away from our current platform and accounting systems to Magento Enterprise, which is a $15,000 a year e-commerce platform. That's just for the license, let alone the development, build, and stuff like that. But when you're doing $3 or $4 million in revenue, it's fine. And also moving that across to Xero as well. Xero is a new online cloud-based accounting software, similar to Mint and different to MyOp and that sort of stuff. So she's a Xero accountant and specialist. So we've been sort of working a little bit together via email and some questions, getting some advice from her too, which is really cool. So I've actually, off the back of this interview, engaging with her in some business aspects too, which is nice.
Cool. I mean, one thing that I got from the kind of the blurb of the book, another thing that really resonates with certainly with me, which is a little quote that Heather gives, and I'm presuming this is something that came out in the conversation, but she says that $1 million multinational micro businesses can operate out of cozy home offices, and digital nomads outsource business operations while traveling the world. Does that sound like anybody we know?
Well, that's it. That's the whole idea, and I guess the thing I really loved about her book, which it definitely ties into that quote, is that, and this is what I said to her, and she laughed and have more context as we speak. But it's a very bland business development book because it's written by an accountant, and what I mean by that is she goes through, I guess, the stuff you have to be across and be aware of that most business startup books forget to include because it's not sexy and it's not hypey. She talks about things like, the finances and getting advice and how to actually establish a business in a legal sense, but also in a concept sense. And one of the very first things she covers is this whole topic of, are you ready to start a business? And this is something that I think a lot of people really need to consider. And we go quite a bit into that in the conversation with Heather about, are you really ready to start a business? What is the purpose of your business? And being clear on that, because if you're not clear on why and are you ready, then your business is not going to be successful. Unfortunately, we see that quite a bit. I know you and I have talked about that a bit in various conversations, Dom, that a lot of people who, quote-unquote, start a business aren't really ready to actually start a business. They would have been better off just getting a different job.
Absolutely. I mean, that's almost the ultimate, just because you can doesn't mean you should, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So it's a really cool conversation that we have, and the good thing about the book is that it's basically laid out over 7 days, and the whole idea is that every day you get a better understanding of a certain section of things you need to develop control, understand, educate yourself on, be aware of around starting a small business.
Cool. Well, that said, let's get right into your conversation with Heather Smith and find out more about Learn Small Business Startup in 7 days.
Heather, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Pete, for having me on your show. I'm so grateful for being invited onto the show, and hello to all the listeners out there who are listening in.
Awesome. Well, good to have you. Now, the book, Learn Small Business Startup in 7 days, very intriguing title, which I do like, and we'll obviously talk quite a bit about it throughout the show, but we might as well start to give people some context about it all. So how did the book come to be? What is it meant to be? Who's it meant to help?
Well,
What's the story
if
there?
we start with the intriguing title, as I was writing it, you're always monitoring what you're writing, and I actually spotted that some man in the UK wrote a book with the exact same title. Can you believe it? As I was writing this, we were basically published at the same time, but his went down a completely different path to mine. So my book comes from, I'm an accountant, and I go in and help businesses start up. So I work with lots of startups. I work with innovation centres and mentoring through the universities. And many times the startup in that phase can't afford everything. They're so busy doing what they do. And I would go into the business and not everything was done that needed, probably legally, probably to cover all aspects to be done. Of course, no one I dealt with was like that, but maybe other people I know with. But so what I did was I said, okay, I'll pull all of my experience, all of my knowledge, all of sort of the reality that I see out there into a book, so it fills in all of those questions and answers all of those questions for someone running a business. And I know that in the initial stages of running a business for myself, I was just reading everything, getting anything I could get my hands on that made sense, I was reading through it. So I think it's a really realistic guide. It's real stories of real businesses and what they're doing and what actually works out there. So I think, you're wise to see, okay, what is doing well, and this is very much what's doing well, what works, what jigsaw pieces do we need to fill in. And so you can kind of go through the book with a pen and go, okay, I've got that tick, go on to the next bit.
I think this is really good. We kind of spoke about this together earlier, is that I actually enjoyed that the book was written by an accountant because it was bland. And I mean that in the most lovingly way. But let me try and justify that comment in that a lot of sort of, startup books, so to speak, they focus so much on the blue sky and the marketing and finding the customer and all that sort of stuff, which is obviously part of the journey. But that is really the second phase of a business, to actually start a business, which is obviously what a lot of these people are talking about and teaching. You have to be, concerned with the finances and, the people and the launching of the business and all that sort of, quote unquote mundane stuff. But I really like that that's what this book's all about, is actually giving people that easy to read. It's not a bland in terms of the way it's read, but obviously the topics are a little bit more that way. And I actually applaud that.
Thank you.
if that makes sense. So I hope, don't take that as an insult. I actually mean that as an absolute compliment.
Yeah, no, I completely get where you're coming from. I dealt with this one person who started a business and launched a marketing campaign and hit 2,000 letterboxes saying, I can do all this work for you, all this gardening work for you. Well, no one ever heard from him for 4 months because he just got so much work, and he went under in that he couldn't manage anything. He couldn't keep on top of anything because he over-marketed himself, and then he didn't have all the basis behind him. And the same goes again. You always hear of these poor businesses that get on like a TV program. Some of the TV programs promote businesses, which is fantastic, but you need to have the capacity to surf before you go down that route of marketing them. It's important to know that there is a market out there, but make sure you have the capacity to surf before you market them. And make sure you have all those insurances, etc., in place before you start selling something that you're going to lose your livelihood over if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and I don't think it's meant to sort of scare people like, here's all the stuff you have to do, but you have to be aware of it because so many people just aren't, and they sort of, you don't want to stop your business and stop, or not start your business because of some of these things. You still want to keep moving forward, but you just got to be aware of what you need to cover off at some stage and in certain stages of your business. And I think so many people don't really think about that. And one of the things I really actually found surprising and actually, again, applaud and really enjoyed is like the whole idea is obviously you tackle one topic a day for 7 days, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But the very first thing you can talk about is, are you ready to start a business?
Yes.
And it's very refreshing to see that in a book, because you may find some people actually read that first chapter and go, do you know what? I'm not ready. Put the book down and walk away. And that in itself is a very good thing to do for a lot of people, because there's people that I consult with and see at events that I speak at and bits and pieces like that I get on the conversation with them. It's like, well, hang on, why are you starting this business? What's the purpose of the business? How does this fit in with your lifestyle goals and all that sort of stuff? And they haven't really thought through the implications of owning a business. They just sort of see this beautiful, shiny, Mark Zuckerberg story and go, yeah, cool, I'm going to go and start Facebook. But in reality, they're not going to go and code for 15 hours a day like Mark did for the first 2 years of Facebook.
Absolutely.
And I think
yes.
It's refreshing to see that.
Thank you. And in that section, I very much say, okay, look, doing what you're doing currently in your own position, what can you build upon to start learning a job? So I know that when I wanted to go into business, I was actually working for a training institute. So what I did was I grabbed every training manual from that institute and took them home, and every evening I spent 3 hours working through it, be it web design, be it advanced Excel, which I use frequently doing what I do in consulting, be it managing people. So if you're in an organisation and they're offering training and you think that can benefit you when you start your job, jump on it and just constantly build and see where you go. Because I know for myself, I know that you started very young in your own business, Pete, but for myself, I spent 2 years going, I want to start a job. I want to start a business,
Yep.
but not knowing what to do about it and just really thinking about it and reading about it. So yeah, very much for that person hoping who wants to work through it themselves.
Because I think for a lot of people, they aren't ready. They're better off just getting a different career.
Yes.
Rather than starting a business. The results they want from a business, they'll actually more likely achieve by getting a different career.
Yes.
And it sounds very strange just sort of for a business blog and a business podcast, all that sort of stuff. It's like saying, well, hang on, realistically, this might not be for you. It might not be your journey. If you want to be able to, have your weekends and spend time with your family and get holiday pay and all that sort of stuff, but just have a better salary and a bit more enjoyment during your day, you're probably going to get that by getting a different job, not by actually going and trying to start up a business.
Yes, definitely. Say goodbye to holiday pay.
Well, particularly if it's your first go at the rodeo, you're going to struggle, and it's just inevitable. And if you sort of read books like this and listen to podcasts and that sort of stuff, you're going to make it's going to be easier for you and more chance of success. But it isn't all roses and butterflies.
No, it definitely isn't, and I don't think that people sometimes are aware of how long every small business owner is actually working, and sometimes they just see the successes and they just see them when they're speaking on stage and they go, wow, that's exciting and that's glamorous. But a lot, we both know a lot of hours went to get to that position.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like I was on the phone to my business partner until 9 p.m. last night.
Yeah.
I left the office at 5:30. Called him on my cell phone to start a conversation, didn't get off till 9 o'clock at night. And this business has been running for 8 years, so it's not like this is like a midweek conversation that happened for 3.5 hours. This is what needs to happen in business sometimes.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I guess let's actually go towards more roses and butterflies and sort of stay away from the manure that we've been talking about. But so the good thing is, like, the whole idea of the book is that you go through a section or a chapter a day for 7 days,
yes.
and it gives you that solid grounding framework context about the sort of 7 or so different key areas of a business that you need to be across and understand before you go and start it up. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. So yes, and some of them obviously will perhaps take longer than just meeting with a lawyer is going to take longer than a 7-day period, but it's really sort of sectionalizing it. And look, it falls into a series. There's an in 7-day series, and it sort of slots nicely into an in 7-day series of books out there. And so you go through it and okay, I go through this. But while you're maybe dealing with the accountant and dealing with the lawyer, you may also start thinking about your marketing as well. So I think it's really compartmentalizing what you need to do. And look, you can go through this, like I've worked out, it takes about 2.5 hours to really in detail go through what you need to do each particular day. But you could sit there and just go through getting all those conversations going and started and think through them. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my take, is if you are going to sort of start this business, use this almost as like a 7-day positive constraint. And what I mean by that is, after hours, for the next 7 days, I'm going to spend 2.5 hours on each one of these things. I'm not going to necessarily obviously have that conversation with the lawyer in this 7-day period, but I'm going to read and learn about the professional advice chapter and get my understanding and context right. So then next week I'll go off and actually implement these things and make those phone calls and set those appointments.
Yes.
And if you can't get through that 7 days of 2.5 hours of night of doing the quote unquote mundane, and I'm not saying it in a bad way, stuff, that almost establishes it itself. You're not ready for a business.
Absolutely. Oh, look, definitely.
If you can't stick to that.
Yeah. And you and I, and probably many of your listeners know these technically awesome, sensational people who are wonderful at designing logos or building things, and they want to go into business on their own, but you can kind of see you don't have that self-discipline to actually do it. You are technically great at what you do, but all the other aspects, are you going to be able to monitor them? And being an employee may be a lot easier.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between mechanics and marketing, and I put down, like, running a business is obviously more than just marketing, but to me that is definitely the cornerstone of a business. And you go through an apprenticeship and you learn the tools, as you said. You learn to become a great graphic designer or a great mechanic or a great barista or whatever it might be. And you know the mechanics of the job.
Yes.
But that is completely different to actually what it takes to run a successful business.
Yes.
As a business owner, the mechanics and the tools are probably only about 15% of what you need to spend your time on.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The rest of it, and this is the big gap that people just don't really get or see. They kind of, they get the tools, and then they see the people on stage living the lifestyle, having, playing golf and, being interviewed on TV and stuff, and they miss that 6-7 year journey in between.
Yeah, absolutely. The 4-hour work week dream out there.
Yeah. So. And look, I know Tim, and what he preaches and stuff is absolutely possible, but there's a lot in between that. Like
absolutely.
when he had, he touches on in the book that when he started Brain Quicken, he was working ridiculous hours, and his girlfriend at the time left the plaque on his wall saying, business hours finish at 5 p.m. But it was only after a couple of years of doing that knuckle grinding work when he got the realization he was able to actually make those changes, because there was at least some sort of momentum and system in place that he could actually leverage into a 4-hour work week.
Absolutely, and I go through his books with like a pencil as I go through every page and make sure I'm doing everything that he's saying, because he's got a lot of information there in his books, definitely, to go through.
So speaking of, it's probably a bad segue, but Tim's great on social media and Web 2.0 sort of stuff. Now, this is a really cool story about how you actually got the book deal, which I thought I'd love to sort of talk about. It's a poor bridge, but we'll use it anyway.
Yeah, so I got the book. I'm prolific on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, and I actually, as I think about things or as I come across things, I will share them via social media and via blogging. And what happened was I actually got an email from Wiley Business, who I believe you've written for in the past, and they said, would you like to come and write a book for us? And I think I was actually in Sydney at the time, and many people probably called the police as they heard me scream. I couldn't believe that I got an email, asking me, who does that? Who gets an email asking them to actually write a book for them? So they actually spotted me via social media channels and said, look, can you pull a book together? So I went ahead and pulled the book together. Are you interested in me going through the writing process, or is that...
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd love to talk about that as well, for sure.
So the writing process for me, I very much integrate with social media. I did I've done actually several writing courses with Valerie Khoo's Writing Centre, which I know that you've spoken with Valerie before, and that was just...
Author of Power Stories?
Yes, Valerie, author of Power Stories, and she also, it's now called the Australian Writer Centre. It was the Sydney Writer Centre when she did the interview with you, and that just solidified and gave me so much confidence in what I was doing. And so how I do it is I sit at my desk and I work through what I'm going to write about. But every sentence that I construct, I actually throw out onto Twitter or out into LinkedIn. And that way I'm enriching what I'm writing, because people actually come back and comment on it. They disagree with it, which is fantastic, because it gets me to go off in a tangent, or they come back and they add further character and colour to what I'm writing about, and I will do that. I'll typically go for like a 350 to 500 word segment at a time, and identify that and write that through Twitter and LinkedIn, pull that together, and essentially you have that little blog post there, which is 350 to 500 words, and I will typically then post it up on Flying Solo or News.com or My Business or some of those sites out there, and at the end of the day you have all of these little 500 word articles, which I then got a sort of patchwork quilt and quilted them all together into a book. So it was actually a very easy writing process, and what you're doing is actually promoting what your knowledge is as you're writing it, and generating this interest in what you're doing, and hopefully credibility in what you're doing, plus gaining insights into, because I would literally come home from a client and go, wow, I learned this at this client today, and throw it out there and see what I could get back from the world out there.
Yeah, and that was obviously a very good process, because obviously you're getting a lot of interaction and people sort of getting that involvement in the book. They're most likely going to obviously go and invest in that at the same time as well, which is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was the book written on social media. the bland
very,
book
very
on not on social media, written on social media, but yes.
I've tainted you now, haven't I, with that word?
No, that's fine. Oh, look, I understand it's operational, and I understand that's what it is, but that's what
it's important that people actually get that, because I think this is the thing, is that people so often overlook that and just think, oh, that'll take care of itself. If I make enough revenue and make enough sales, that stuff will just somehow magically take care of itself, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
But you have to be across it. You have to be aware of, what's required from a bits and pieces, and things like you're saying. Like, one of the things that I talk about quite a bit, which you said, is stuff like, who cares about your logo on stationery? Like, that sort of stuff is just, it's ridiculous. Like, that does not sell a client having pretty stationery. It's irrelevant in that scenario.
Yeah,
and this is the sort of stuff
you're about to
it's
get
really
lots
real
of emails from graphic designers, but yes, yeah.
I've said it before. Is, to me, branding should be a byproduct.
Yes.
Having a good brand. If you look at some of the companies we have, Simply Headsets and Discount Conference Phones. Like, Simply Headsets is a multi-million-dollar business that we have that does e-commerce products.
Yes.
The logo's terrible.
Yes.
And we'll admit the logo's terrible, but it doesn't stop people buying from us. And if you had a better logo, it wouldn't increase conversion rates.
Absolutely.
So, it's just why do stuff that's not actually going to affect profit? Because at the end of the day, business is about profit. And if you can't tie a direct thing between what you're about to do and how it's going to increase profit, don't do it.
Absolutely,
it's completely pointless.
Absolutely. And I think, going back to sort of what you were talking about before, in that everything that, now that you're running the business, everything that you do in the business, even if you outsource it to an incredible accountant or an incredible lawyer or an incredible graphics designer or someone overseas, which all of that works for you, at no stage can you abdicate responsibility for what you're doing. The accountant gets you to sign off on all of those documents. He doesn't sign that your tax reports are correct. You sign them off. And if they're not correct, you're in trouble, not him, as with everything else. And so that's something really, because I know that some people just say, I don't care about my accounts, just do it, and I will pay you as much money as possible. It doesn't work like that. You have to take...
I couldn't agree more, and people can read into that what they will, but I couldn't agree more.
Yes, you can't abdicate the responsibility, and you have to understand what's going on in your own accounts and your own legal side and your own insurance. And I know that you've probably not got to the exciting insurance section, but I counted out. Look, I'm an accountant and I'm risk averse, but I currently have 20 separate insurances at the moment, which sounds unbelievably insane, but it's just, if you go through all the individual little things you need for a business, it's incredible.
So let me talk about the accounting side of stuff, because something that you've obviously got experience with your consulting is things like Xero and stuff.
Yes.
And I'd love to just touch on that. It's a bit separate to the book, but the whole cloud-based accounting stuff, I think for a lot of people listening, the way stuff's going these days is really cool, and we're starting to migrate some of our smaller business units and stuff like that to Xero, which I'm a big fan of. And do you want to talk about Xero and your experience and the benefits and stuff there? Because I think people will get some real benefit out of that.
Absolutely. I'm not sure whether you're aware of my next book coming out. Yes.
No, is it on Xero, is it?
My next book coming out is Xero for Dummies. So the
Nice.
black and yellow title, Xero for
Dummy
Dummies.
series.
So, yes,
Awesome.
so I've actually got 4 Xero books coming out in the next... I'm publishing 5 books this year. How insane is that? And 4 of them
That is
are on
pretty
Xero.
crazy.
So yes, so I'm all across Xero. So let me talk about that. For people who are unaware of Xero, it's a completely cloud-based system. You don't need to have anything on your desktop. You can go anywhere, log into a browser, completely secure logins, just as you would a bank. So you do it, if you were prepared to log into a bank, you should be prepared to log into Xero. You can access it on your iPhone and your iPad. The major difference initially, what you'll find is what you do is you hook up your bank feeds to Xero. So you hook up your bank feeds, your
Which
credit...
is awesome.
Yeah. You hook up your bank feeds, your credit card feeds, your PayPal feeds, and eventually all different online gateway feeds will be able to hook up. And so your transactions flow through into Xero. So you no longer have to do any of that data entry. I run 2 separate businesses, and because I am... so I have a desktop one that I do manually enter the data into. Xero saves me now about 90% of that time in just the data entry. You still need to code it, but however, what you do is it learns how you regularly code something. So it sees that when you go to this parking place, that's parking, and you've coded it like that before, so it suggests is this parking. So I kind of liken it to a Space Invaders game. You wake up in the morning and you have the 2 lines on the 2 columns, and on one side you have all the bank feeds that came in last night, and on the other side it has all the suggestions, and you just go through and it has a little OK button in the middle, and you go OK. And of course, if there's something a bit more complicated, you have to dive in and access that and put some further information into that. So you have that side of it, but then what's great about it is your tax accountant or your business advisor or your bookkeeper can log in from, if you've given them permission, from wherever they are. They can log into the system and they can do your books for you. Your tax accountant can go in and do your taxes directly into Xero, so you never have any of this sending your data file across the email for him to do it and then sending it back. He does it directly into Xero, makes all the adjustments directly into Xero. So you wait, literally it is up to date within about 48 hours all the time. So kind of waiting on bank feeds, etc. to come in, but it's just up to date all the time. So the information is really reliable. Taking that one step further, what it has is something known as a published API, which is a Published Application Programming Interface, which is the fancy term for it. That is a key that allows you to unlock the Xero, the sort of the behind the scenes Xero. So what you can do is, if you have an eBay store, you can link your eBay store directly with Xero, and all of the transactions can flow through and fill out relevant fields. That you kind of do a field matching thing and fill out the fields into Xero. So there are lots and lots of products that will integrate with Xero in that way. So Xero you consider to be a back-end accounting solution, doing your finances, doing your BAS, doing your company taxes. But then if you need to manage inventory, if you need to if you have project management happening, you come in and you connect these different systems in. And there's another thing, if you're in fact based anywhere in the world, have a look at OneSaaS, ONESAAS, and what that is for anyone who hasn't built a direct add-on connection into Xero, it unlocks many hundreds of other applications that will then feed into Xero, such as your MailChimp, your Salesforce, your CRM products. So someone goes onto eBay and all of a sudden within seconds you have all their contact information in your Xero database if you want it, which is just massive time saver, massive data entry saver, totally integrated seamless systems, and life's a lot easier.
It's fantastic, which is awesome. So we're moving a lot of our stuff. We in our telco business we have SAP B1, which is obviously a behemoth of accounting and management software. But for some of the smaller e-commerce subdivisions and stuff like, we are moving those sort of things across to Xero because it's just so much smoother, and because we have some of our team in the Philippines who do some of the data entry when it comes to entering in AP invoices from our suppliers. with Xero, you can obviously limit access as well. So
Yes.
the team in the Philippines can't see any of your actual accounting or your bank records or anything like
Yes.
that. All they have the ability to do is go in and actually enter invoices into the system. So then the invoices are sitting there. You have your bank feeds automatically, and you as a manager or your accounts person just goes in, once a week, once a day, and just goes, yep, that payment to supplier A for $1,500 matches the invoice here. Hit OK, bang. There's your done. There's your reconciliation done. It's absolutely
unbelievable.
brilliant.
Yeah,
So,
and going back to that, there are systems out there like Shoebox, like Receipt Bank,
Yep.
like Invitebox that you actually send all your source documents to. And they scan them and they extract all the data automatically for you. So if you don't have backup in the Philippines, it extracts all the data and feeds it directly into Xero for you again.
Now, let me ask you this question, because I do use Shoebox,
Yes.
but limited a little bit. So for just literally paper receipts, go spend
Yes.
cash, get a receipt at the store. Could, as a business, send their actual AP invoices from a supplier to Shoebox?
Yes, that is one that you can do. I think there's another one called Invite. I'll think of the name while we're talking. But yes, you should be able to and put that in. But there is another one. I think it's called Invitebox.
So you can literally just outsource and automate your entire basically data entry side of accounting anyway, which is amazing.
Yeah, Invitebox, INVIT box, and I think how it works is, and I think you have show notes, so I'll make sure I get the correct name and put it in there.
Yeah.
But what it does is you actually set up an email address. So rather than your invoice from Telstra or from whomever it's coming from go to you, it actually goes directly to this service and it extracts the data and just feeds it directly into your system. So quite amazing, the time savings that involved with that,
cool.
and the detail coming through. But again, it's about, you can't abdicate responsibility, so you need to just need to keep monitoring what they're doing and that it suits your requirements. So I know with some of them, sometimes I think there's one, and I won't mention it, but one doesn't bring across invoice numbers. So for some of us, that's a bit of a concern. It's not pulling across the invoice numbers. So you need to go, does this suit my requirements? Is this doing what I do? But massive time saver. It gives the small person running, like as you probably are aware, I've got businesses can run out of a garage, but they can be massive. And what they're actually able to do with this sort of software, with a fast internet connection, it's just incredible.
It's absolutely amazing, and this is what I guess you do. Besides obviously writing, 20 books in a year, which is insane in its own right. But again, using the leverage sort of stuff of actually, you're producing a book, but at the same time producing social media marketing content and blogging content. So you're using that sort of leveraged approach to content creation as well, which I love. You obviously do this sort of consulting work as your primary business. Is that correct?
Yeah, that pays the bills, unfortunately. That pays the bills. Book writing doesn't necessarily pay the bills. But
no, it is quite strange when in Australia, like the government make more money in GST revenue than you do as an author in royalties for a book. It's it's quite absurd. Yes,
absolutely. But again, it's kind of like for me, what I did was I extracted myself from a lot of volunteering roles and said, if I do this is going to help a lot of people, and that's what I did. So it was kind of like, no, I can't volunteer here, volunteer there. You know how mums get caught up in volunteering.
Absolutely. Good old PTA.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, okay. And look, as I'm sure you probably get, people contact you and said, this made a massive difference to my life, and that's really gratifying.
Absolutely. That's why we do the podcast and I blog and stuff, because our businesses do very, very well. But for me, it's like this is my chance of sort of, talking about my experiences and learnings and hopefully help other people get to where I'm at. So I completely understand.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the book and your Xero and stuff, like we spoke earlier and we sort of worked out a way to sort of have a really cool thing for listeners and stuff. Do you want to sort of run through how that sort of
okay.
Well,
I am happy to offer a prize giveaway on your show if you're able to do that. So happy to offer a signed copy of this book, which is Learn Small Business Startup in 7 Days, and my next book, which is Xero for Dummies, but that's when it's published, and an invitation to online live question and answer session where you can ask me whatever you would like. And so that's a prize giveaway that you can choose.
So let's maybe do something like this. Anybody who has an experience around any of this sort of stuff. They've used Xero to success. They've obviously heard this and implemented some stuff, or anything around that sort of automation for their accounts and starting up, and the blandness of startup they've learnt and taken away. If they can email support@preneurgroup.com with a sort of little case study and things like that, just email support@preneurgroup.com. We'll pick some entries and we'll go from there.
Fantastic. And if listeners want to purchase a Xero subscription through me, if they mention this podcast, I'm happy to offer them a free basic setup. Like the specifications for that are on my website, which is heathersmithsmallbusiness.com/Xero. So you probably don't want me to go through the specifics, but happy to offer them, if they sign up to Xero through me, happy to offer them a free basic setup.
Awesome. And Xero is spelled
Xero. Yeah.
Obviously, all the good old links will be in the show notes and stuff like that.
I always do the what's that, deal or no deal? I always do that. No deal. X to really get it for people, because I think even my publishers were going, it's a Z. No, it's an X.
No, it is X. The good old Web 2.0 names and stuff like that, which you do talk about in your book as well, which is really cool.
Yes, so, I do in detail, yes.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you the usual question that we finish off with at the end of every conversation and stuff we have here is, what's been the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have?
Okay, because I've just listened to, I think, all of your podcasts over the last week.
So you come prepared. Damn it.
And I was thinking initially I should go with do you listen to Piers Morgan?
Yeah, a little bit.
He always goes, have you ever truly been in love? So no, won't go with that question. But as you've just had a new baby in your life, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't sure listening to it whether it would still be new or not. Can you run a business around children? So that I thought would be a good topic to end on.
That is an answer I would like the answer to as well, because like the little fella Eli is only 6 weeks old or 7 weeks old now as we record this. In the first 3 or 4 weeks, my answer would have been absolutely not. I was absolutely shocked with what was the lifestyle change. I think most parents know, is you can't really prepare for it. Yeah. And I was very arrogant about thinking I'll be able to deal with it, and it was very, very much a shock, but now sort of getting into that routine and stuff. But I would love to hear some expert advice, Heather. So what's your answer to that question?
I think that you absolutely can run a business around children. I think you have to go with the flow of it and the time it involved, etc. But what's going to happen, and what's going to amaze you, is the amount of new people who are going to come into your life, and in the different elements that he goes through, and that he'll go through kindergarten and preschool and school. And I have a friend who's formed a massive company with another guy. How about this? One of them was standing on one side of the bouncy castle supervising the kids, while the other guy was standing on the other side, standing there at a kids' party talking, and sort of they formed a business over standing, holding up this bouncy castle. So I think that children invite a massive amount of new people into your life, which can be really interesting, and you have some really interesting, I'm trying not to sound slimy, snaky person, but really interesting networking opportunities from having children.
Absolutely.
Children also teach you, as you said before, patience. They teach you unbelievably good negotiating skills. You wait till what they all convince you to part with from your pocket. I myself try, and my kids are now teenagers, but from a very young age, I try to incorporate them in the business, getting them to do tasks, even as simple as putting a stamp on an envelope. I frequently talk to them about, like someone who perhaps owes me money and is not refusing to pay and something like that. And I talk to them about those sorts of scenarios so they have an awareness of what's actually going on in the reality of business, rather than put it down into textbooks. But saying all of that, I think you have to then still keep a professional appearance. And if you have an important meeting with a fashion designer and you're taking some of your clothes along to him, don't turn up there with your baby. Sort out some babysitting arrangement. Don't do that, because that will just crush you, and they won't have that same respect for you. However, I've had very wealthy, well-to-do businesses ring me up and say, look, can you come and help us, but we'll be breastfeeding. Do you have a problem with that? Now, I don't have a problem with that, and I very much tell people, I'm a mum running this business, and so it will attract a certain demographic of people, and for me that's completely fine. I actually find a lot of men running businesses love to help women starting, like men who perhaps higher up the chain love to help women in business. I don't know whether that sounds sexist or not, but they're really like, they applaud the fact that I say, I no longer say it, but it used to be I work school hours, da-da-da-da-da, and they applaud that. So I think at Derry, definitely you can fit it in. It's going to open up lots of different opportunities for you, and just embrace them and work with them. So.
Yep, could not agree more. But in terms of the negotiations tactic, I'm going to try... pulling my pants and crying and trucking a tantrum in the next board meeting I have and see how that goes.
Yeah, yes. But,
awesome, Heather.
But if you turn up with your baby in any, if you need to convince a woman to do anything, she'll go, "Oh, of course I will. Of course I will. You've got a cute baby."
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Heather. The book is out now, is that right?
Yes, it's out in bookstores at the moment. It's a real book.
Beautiful.
Everyone goes, "It's a real book." Yes, it's a real book. Learn small business startup in 7 days.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it all, the advice. And definitely, guys, check out Xero as an option for your business. And if you are going to go that way, definitely take up Heather's offer to sort of help get the basics set up at no cost, because it's an absolute no-brainer. So thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Appreciate it.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gaucher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at PreneurMedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.